This is a Touchstone Publishers presentation, your trusted source of leadership knowledge.
Greetings, everyone. Glenn Daniels, COO of Touchstone Publishers, and welcome back to the Essential Leadership Podcast, where we discover skills and techniques that make leaders great. It's been a while, back in service here. I'm so excited to have as our first guest as we reprise this, David Suson. Now, I've known David for years, so it's a little bit of a cheat for me because this gentleman knows how to drive results. He is a performance expert, and he really looks at sales processes, the complex ones. Now, those of you that are in the nonprofit sphere, you might be saying, well, that doesn't have anything to do with us. Well, if you think a little bit deeper, you know it does, because your sales are complex. Okay, you have to maybe sell the father to get involved, the mother to get involved. You have to sell the father to not return to prison, or the mother not to return to prison. Maybe that's what you're doing. You have to sell kids on the educational process. You have to sell your employees, your staff, on how to work in a job that they get paid less for because it makes a difference, and you have to sell them on that. That is a long, complex sales system, so I'm going to invite you to take some tips from David that he's going to share with us today and use those. Those of you who are not in nonprofits and you know sales is what drives your bottom line, David is here to absolutely, positively help you. You're going to enjoy this. Let's go ahead and get started. So, David, welcome.
Hey, thank you, Glenn, for having me. I so appreciate it.
Well, I'm more than pleased to have you. And like I mentioned, I've known you for quite a few years, but I do want everybody to understand that you can bring a lot of value if you just stay in there. So let me just ask you right off the bat, what is a sales performance expert?
So as the sales performance expert, what I do is I take my 25 plus years of sales and sales leadership experience, and I help other organizations and individuals be able to actually implement skills and techniques that they learn. And the reason I call it a sales performance is it truly is about how do I perform? It's not just here, I read a book on sales or sales leadership or leadership in general, and then I know it. The reality is we don't adopt what we learn as part of who we are in just a one book reading or a one-day workshop or a one-day seminar. So what I've learned is in order to create sustainable change, it really takes hand-holding and feedback over time. My best analogy of this is golf. I could probably teach you how to swing a golf club in a day, the grip, the stance, etc. But that doesn't mean you're going to be on the PGA Tour in a week or two or three, right?
Yeah.
Learning is one thing, implementing, doing, and mastering is another. So as a sales performance coach, I take that 25 plus years of experience and I coach and mentor and teach and train organizations and individuals how to do it. And then I actually help them implement in there and strategize within their world. So it's real world. It's not just, here's a great idea. Oh, that was neat. Yeah, I attended a training once, but I'm not implementing it, right? Oh yeah, I took a golf lesson. I took a golf lesson once. Yeah, how's your game? It hasn't really changed. That's what happens, right? That's not what we want. So that's what I do.
Well, tell me, Dave, when you look at leaders, what can a leader take away from just the sales performance expert that you are? Not the whole process, but what can a leader, if I'm going to lead my company and I'm bringing this sales performance expert, a lot of people can say, well, we don't sell. But what can you bring to the table for the leadership in the room listening right now?
That's such a great question because people say, well, we're not a sales organization. We're a this, we're a this, we're a this. Okay, here's the way I see it. We are always selling our ideas. And I don't mean selling like, and no offense to used car salespeople or door to door, but that's not what I mean. It's we're conveying, we're trying to get people to buy into our ideas. So I always think people use sales as a bad word because many times our personal consumer experience hasn't been positive. I look at sales as purely helping people get what they already want or need. And usually that is to solve a problem or challenge or achieve some greater gain. So I know a lot of who you work with, Glenn, you've shared with me, are executives and nonprofits. So what are they selling? A vision.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? They're trying to get people to buy into a vision. If it was politics, it's buying into their candidate or buying into supporting a candidate. If it's some other organization, they may actually be selling services. So let's say we're selling a vision.
Mm-hmm.
It is meeting the need of a potential supporter, donor, or someone in need. And what is their need? Well, it may be, I feel good by giving. It may be, I feel strongly about a cause. It may be, I personally have had challenges and I know your organization is in alignment. Now it's just helping touch on those feelings and emotions and desires of someone and elevating that so that they realize that what you have to offer is a better use of my time, effort, or money.
Okay.
Because I could have my time, effort, money somewhere else. It's just helping me or helping someone else understand what's different about your organization. Why should I put time, effort, and money toward you versus somewhere else?
Okay, I want to back up just a second here because you did come upon something that often happens. Salespeople are viewed as the used car dealers and those type of things, and you have a process, and you discuss that in your book 180, and also you're going to talk about your book Balls. But you have this process, and I think when I deal with salespeople, I'm not liking it too much. So to me, that makes your job a little bit harder. Why do you do it?
Why do I do it? That's a great question. You know, the funniest thing is I'm kind of an accidental sales expert. I was introvert as a young kid. I was a math science geek. I got my degree in electrical and computer engineering, and I kind of fell into it. I was actually wanting to be kind of a technical liaison between a company and their clients. And I ended up accidentally, in a way, I interviewed with IBM and I got hired at IBM. And I thought, you know, what a great opportunity to push myself because this is not what I would normally do. And I was at a point in my life right after college where I wanted personal change. So I went into sales and I was very fortunate at IBM that IBM was not like traditional sales of other businesses. They were truly consultants. And one of the things that they taught me is you really have to understand your client and your client's client. Mm-hmm. And what you're there for is to solve a problem. So I started studying more and more and more about sales. And what I realized is I was always a problem solver. I mean, as an engineer, I'm a problem solver. So when I took a different frame or different view of selling, not that I was selling, but I was solving a problem for an organization. I was solving a problem. So I sold to nonprofits. I sold to other types of businesses, and it was just solving a problem. And if they didn't have a problem, it was understanding their business so well that I knew what the problems probably were, even though they weren't always top of mind. So then what I learned is if I just learned to ask smart questions, and I'm not afraid to ask smart questions, it elevates the need and the pain, and it makes them realize, you know what, you're right. We have that problem all the time. I wasn't thinking about it in the moment, but you're right. That is an ongoing headache we've had. We had no idea there was a way to solve it. And then what I do is ride in on, you know, the white stallion pony and solve the problem. And I go, well, look, if there was a way to solve it, is that something you'd be interested in hearing about? And they're like, well, absolutely. And then it was just a natural transition to either solve a problem or help them achieve a desire and a personal win or a corporate win or a business win that they had. And then it was just a natural transaction. It was just a natural thing. So I didn't look at it as selling. And so what happened is, moving forward, I realized that in order for me to differentiate myself and my approach, I couldn't continue to appear like all the other salespeople, because then people do pigeonhole me, just like you said, Glenn. They put you in the, oh, you're a sales rep. So I said, I got to be different. So I learned how to appear, approach, and work with clients in a manner that was different. And I had one gentleman, which is very typical of clientele of mine, who said to me, you know, Dave, I have worked for 20 years with salespeople. I have never worked with someone like you. You are so different from everyone else. And I continued to hear that over and over, and I asked him what they meant.
Yeah.
And so what I realized is I really took a 180-degree swing and a 180-degree approach from the way most salespeople are, meaning I didn't come across like a salesperson. Sure, I have excitement and enthusiasm with you on the call, but with a client, I learned to adapt to best communicate the way they needed to be communicated to. So I'm not over the top, this aggressive, assertive, outgoing person. I'm like a doctor. I'm just solving their pain. And so I appear differently than most. And so what I realized is I was always contrary to what I read in books and contrary to other salespeople, and it made me stand out. And so from that, I realized, I kind of do 180 degree. And then I eventually coined that as my approach is 180 degree selling and 180 degree leadership and 180 degree customer service. Because in my leadership, my selling service, it's contrary to what everyone else does. And I realized it fit my personality because that describes me since I was a kid. I was always contrary. I always wanted to take the different path. And I don't know why. I think it's because I was never really comfortable being a follower. And when I was young, I was not necessarily a leader. Mm-hmm. When I was young, I wasn't a leader. I just wasn't a follower. And it wasn't until I did more personal development and some of the things I wrote about in my book that I started learning how to really be a leader. And I still continue to have that contrary approach. And it has served me well. And as I train and coach hundreds, if not thousands of people, and I speak to thousands of people all over the US and internationally, it resonates that having this contrary approach to what's typical.
It does resonate. And I have read your book, and I want to push in a little bit of a different direction, though, because the book is full of skills and techniques. Balls, that in itself, when you break this all down, you're looking at skills and techniques. But something I noticed that I think that maybe I want to bring out to everybody here, your passion.
Yeah. I
think your passion pushes you to go past the used car salesman passion. How do you apply that passion? How do you going to teach the leaders that are listening to apply that passion to their vision, to their mission, so that their operating managers and their senior vice presidents can all follow through? How would you apply that passion?
Oh man, what a great question. First of all, I don't want to rag on car salesmen, but
I do. I don't mind doing that.
All right, so here's what I've learned about goal setting, and I know you're a goal setting expert too. What I have learned is when you are drawn towards something, it creates greater motivation. So oftentimes people will say, I have a goal of getting so many more clients or so many more supporters or so many more donors or X amount of dollars. Mm-hmm. The thing is, that doesn't draw me. If I'm a leader, that doesn't necessarily excite me or pull me forward. So what I always look at is, how do you reframe it so it pulls you forward? So for example, to me, to be able to impact 1,000 people in a year or more, to be able to change a life, to be able to motivate and inspire, to be able to have a light switch turn on where someone goes, oh my gosh, I can't believe how I've struggled for years to motivate my team, inspire my team, or to sell, or get my team to sell. And I've tried everything. Oh my gosh, the way you presented it, you got to the root cause, you exposed blind spots. oh my gosh, that's amazing. Like I just got off the phone before this podcast with a client of mine, and she says, you know, she goes, I've done coaching, personal development my whole life. She says, what you have done is given me more confidence and driven and allowed me to be more fearless than anything I've ever seen or heard in my life. That is the greatest compliment I get. I live for that. I get chills when I think about it. So that motivates, inspires me.
Yes.
So instead of saying I want 1,000 clients, it's or X amount of dollars, or if I'm a leader, an executive, you know, we have financial goals, revenue goals, sales goals, whatever it is. Instead, it is what's the mission and passion that gets me up in the morning. And for me, personally, it's making change and having impact. When I led a sales team, one of the stints I did is we implemented consulting and technology services to impact K-12 education. And my mission was how many kids I can impact, not how many schools, not how much money, but how many kids' lives are we changing? And so whenever we implemented in a school district, sure, it was maybe $1 million, $2 million, $5 million solution, but 50,000 students, and you're changing a life. So to answer your question, to get the passion and excitement, it's reframing, and then it's selling that. And I hate the word selling in this context, but then it's sharing that vision with the people that you want to support you, so they buy into the excitement and the passion and the mission of what you're doing. It's not just give me money. It's not just make a sale. It's let's change a life or solve a problem. And you get the people, especially nonprofits, you get the people that buy into the vision and the passion. And you got to find out what floats their boat, you know, what excites them.
Right.
But that's what I would say.
Well, now I don't want to mislead people and have people thinking that this is a motivational book. Your book Balls. Hold that up for us real quick so everybody can see that. Okay. It is somewhat, perfect. It is somewhat motivational. Okay, I won't deny that. But what it does do, it brings you skills and techniques to use. Tell us a little bit about some of the skills and techniques. If you have a moment, tell us about the predict.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you about the book and how it came about. So I had interviewed about 3,000 top performers, sales leadership, executives, things like that. And what I found was some of the most successful people were not always the ones that always had the best skill, but they exhibited 3 core traits. And I started noticing the traits over and over and over in leaders, in salespeople, in you know, and I boiled it down. I said, well, what was it? I said, number one, they tend to be fearless, meaning what I've learned when I teach leadership is I teach that leaders, the best leaders, tend to be the most decisive leaders. And in order to be decisive, you got to make a decision. You got to be fearless. You can't hem and haw. You can't be wishy-washy. People don't want to follow wishy-washy leaders. You have to be decisive. But to be decisive, you got to be fearless. So I started noticing that the best salespeople are also fearless. They're fearless in decision-making. They're fearless in pursuing. Right. They're fearless in asking. They're fearless in sharing their views. And this fearlessness pervades everything in their life. It's fearless in making a decision. They're not afraid to be wrong. They're not afraid to recommend. They're not afraid to, here's a great restaurant, go to it. Here's a great movie. They're fearless in recommendation in everything they do. So number one, I realized they were fearless. Number two, I realized that the best leaders, the best salespeople, the best in anything, oftentimes, especially in sales, they set the goal to be number one. And to test this theory, I would ask top performers, where at the beginning of the year, I would say, where do you think you're going to be ranked at the end of the year? And they go, well, number one. You ask an average performer, and they say, top 50%. So I was watching one of the examples that really made this. So first of all, number two, they're driven to be number one. and they set a goal of being number one in their organization, for their team, for themselves.
Right.
And once they set the vision to be number one, they work to the level required to hit the goal. If their goal is only be top 50%, they only work as hard as that vision. And I saw this when I was watching an interview of Olympians back in 2002. And they interviewed one skier who made the Olympic team, and they said, "How do you think you're going to do in the Olympics?" He goes, "I don't know. I'm just happy to have made the team."
Right.
And I was thinking, that was his goal. So he only worked as hard to do that. But a gold medalist, they work as hard as it required to get the gold. And so the guy that actually won the gold in the downhill skiing, and I tell the story, is, I'll give you the quick abbreviated version. Going into the final run, downhill skiing in the Olympics, he had such a margin lead in the lead. All he had to do was make it down the hill and not screw up, just an average time, and he would have medaled. Mm-hmm. But he went all out, balls to the wall, as I say, and he almost wiped out. He ended up not wiping out, and he ends up winning the gold. And they said in the interview after, they said, "Why did you risk everything?" And he says this: "I didn't come here to just get a medal. I came here to get the gold." So he played to win. And so they play balls to the wall, is what I call it. And then the third thing I noticed in interviewing thousands of people is, especially in sales, what I noticed when I was a sales manager and even early in my career, oftentimes salespeople drop the ball. You know, I would ask my sales reps, "Hey, so what's the status of that deal?" And they look at you like a deer in the headlights, and they're like, "Oh, I gave them a proposal last week. I haven't heard back from them." And I'm like, "What do you mean you haven't heard back from them?" "Well, they haven't called me back. They said they were going to call me. I haven't heard from them." I'm like, you're being reactive. Okay. When I look at the top performers, they're proactive. They don't forget to make the call. They're always on top of their schedule. They get done more in a day than most. And part of what drives them to get more done is decisiveness leads to more action, but then they're on top of it, whether they have a better memory or a better schedule. So they don't drop balls. So the reason I named the book Balls, The 3 Secrets of Success, is top performers have balls. They're fearless. Number 2, they play balls to the wall, right? They're driven, they're motivated, they're excited to be number 1. And number 3, they don't drop balls. They're on top of it. They get more done in a day. So that's how I came up with the title for Balls. And I know it sounds simple, and in concept it's simple, but to do it, it's some of it's technique, but some of it's just head trash. What holds us back? And I'm a root cause guy. So what I do as a performance expert is I work with people to get to root cause of what holds you back from being more motivated, what holds you back from being decisive, what holds you back from fear, from making a cold call, making a donor call, following up with someone, asking the tough questions. Okay. That's why I call it Balls.
I want to ask you, before you go on into some of the techniques that you're sharing, of those 3, do you find one of those has more of a driving force, more of a root cause? I mean, which one is a larger of the problem, would you say?
Yeah, awesome question. And what I have found with all of the clients that I coach, it always comes down to fearlessness, having balls. And the funniest thing is, when I first start working with someone, they say, "I'm fearless." And then we get into dialogue over time, over the weeks. And I realize they think they're fearless. They might be fearless jumping out of an airplane. They might be fearless, traveling, but they're not 100% fearless. They have decisiveness issues. They have something that holds them back in their life. And it almost always comes down to this fearlessness. And I almost hate to call it fearlessness, because some people automatically go, "Oh, I'm fearless." But it's kind of the broader umbrella. An example of this, the one that I used to have a problem with when I was young, I didn't realize that I had an issue with it, but I would analysis paralysis, right? I'd overthink stuff. Well, that's because of fear. It's fear of making the wrong decision.
Okay.
Or, Glenn, you say, hey, I'm going to be in Denver, and what restaurant would you recommend? And I would say, oh, there's this great restaurant, and I would start describing the restaurant, but then I would always give myself an out if you didn't like it, because I would hate to recommend it. And then you go, Dave, what a horrible recommendation. The food sucked, and it was overly priced, and parking was $20 just to get there. And I had to valet, and it's white cloth table, and I was in shorts, and you didn't tell me that. And the problem is, because I was so afraid of what you might think of me, or so afraid that I would look stupid or dumb or not smart, or that I lacked integrity, because my God, if I had integrity, I would never tell you to go to that restaurant. So the problem is, I would hem and haw about my recommendation. And what I realized is, when you're fearless, you are more decisive. You're not wishy-washy. So what you do is you go, hey, Glenn, great restaurant, go here. And then you come back and you say, it really sucked. I didn't like it. And I would say, I'm so sorry.
Dave, I saw, and I'm taking what you're saying, and I'm applying it to one of my clients right now, where they're having a problem with their employees. Okay. Nonprofits, as a rule, can't pay as much as the public sector can. In some cases, they have the government.
In some cases,
they have that government finance package, and that's all they can do. They're having an issue with actually filling what they call the parking lot with potential candidates. So if this person leaves, they have another candidate ready to go. And part of that comes down, and I'm sharing this with you because when you said we're talking about this number one issue, that's their issue. They don't want to interview people to not give them the job, maybe have to call them later on and be told, well, no, I took another job. What's the fear behind that? There shouldn't be a fear behind that. They should just fill that parking lot up. So
absolutely.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, absolutely. You always have to have, I teach leadership too, and you always have to have your next candidates in line. And one of the things that I always think is, people who struggle to get good candidates, just look at companies like Starbucks or Google, right? They have people, or Southwest Airlines, right? A couple examples. They have thousands of applications when there's a job. Why? Because they attract people. And so the first thing I would say is your company attracting the talent you want? And you say, I don't know how to do that. Well, that's where leadership, true leadership, comes in. It's learning how to motivate, inspire, and change the morale and the vision of an organization. So first of all, your number one salespeople are your employees, just like the companies I mentioned, where they go, God, I love working here. It's the greatest, the greatest, the greatest. Yep. And now everyone else is like, I want to work for a great boss. I wish I had a great boss. I don't have a great boss. I wish I had a boss that loved me and cared for me. So that's number one. You get people so excited internally first, just like at Southwest, or Virgin, right? Read some of the stuff from Richard Branson. He talks about, your customer doesn't come first, your employees come first. You change the perspective, so you increase the motivation and the morale of your employees. They become your best salespeople. So number two, people see this. And so when you begin to interview others, you have a desire to work at your organization. First of all, the mission, the passion, but the employees, and you become the greatest place to work. And people are willing to forego big salaries, just like you said, for a better place to work. And how do I know this? Interviewing 3,000 people, right? All the time. There's people I met that are like, you can make more somewhere else. I interviewed this guy. He was late 20s. I said, what do you do? And he worked in IT. And I said, how's the career, the pay? He goes, it's good. He goes, if I change jobs, he goes, I could probably bump my salary by 20 grand. And I go, 20 grand? I go, that's significant. He goes, yeah, except I love my boss.
Yeah.
He supports me.
Yeah.
I love the mission. I love what we're doing. And I said, and what I realized after I interviewed thousands of people is that was the number one reason people don't change jobs, is they love their boss. So what am I telling you as a leader listening to this right now? It's learning how to get your people to want to follow you in battle, no matter what. And once they get excited, they're you can attract people, even if your pay is not as competitive as somewhere else, if they love coming to work. I always think of it this way, Glenn. Let's say you work an average 8 to 5 job, right?
Right.
That's 9 hours. Plus the amount of time you're commuting and preparing to go to work, an hour, plus the commute home. So now we're 9, 10, roughly 11 hours of your day. 11 hours of your day are committed to the career. How much of your time is awake during the day, committed to you and your life, your family? Half that.
Yep, exactly.
So you're spending more time at work and career. So why not make it the greatest 11 hours you can? And the better organizations know how to do this. People like you, right, know how to coach and mentor these teams to get them excited, so they create this environment that everyone wants to work at. So the answer to your question is, you fill the parking lot by, first of all, becoming somewhere where people want to work.
Right.
And the buzz, even if you're a small group, it doesn't matter, but you create this buzz, and it's doable. It starts at the top, though. This doesn't start at the bottom.
No,
it starts at the top. And it starts with a mindset first, and a mind shift that we can and will, and then there's a payoff by learning to do this. And then it's starting to backfill these positions and knowing, that where your next best hire is going to be. I worked for an organization, and they told managers 1/3 of your time should be spent recruiting.
A new channel from Touchstone Publishers for leaders. Just imagine skills and techniques to help you be a better leader than what you were yesterday.
All because he was fearless enough to say, "You're not right now," because I don't want to.
But Talent Scout, you build your book, you build your list of quality candidates, and you keep an eye out for rock stars. And you keep a book, you keep a list, whether it's LinkedIn, an Excel spreadsheet, a piece of paper, and you stay in touch with these people on a regular basis, or you post, or you do whatever you have to do, and they're your next hire. And then that's how you start to build it. But they're not going to come work for you or your organization if you don't attract quality and you're a stepping stone down. You need to be an organization where the buzz is, this is the greatest place to work. And it's not about money. It's not about the money. It's about the passion, the vision, the mission, and how well you sell it.
See, now, one thing I don't want our listeners to forget, although we're getting close on time here, but I want everybody to kind of understand this. I've known you for a while, and I know that the passion and everything you do lies beneath that. But you're really about skills and techniques, like we are at our company. It's about techniques, and Balls has techniques. So I'm going to say, for example, there's a gentleman who trying to fill up his parking lot, kind of afraid to do it, doesn't want to be looked on badly by people when he can't hire them, or doesn't want to just do it because he's fearful of other people's reactions. You have created a system inside Balls that says, here's how you do this. Here's each step of the way. Here's the model to get this done. I want to make sure that everybody understands that techniques drives successful passion. Tell us about your favorite technique in the book.
So I would say one of the things that I like, especially around fearlessness, is I always look at root cause to fearlessness, and I'm like, so what is it that holds people back from being decisive or making a decision or something like that?
Right.
And what I've learned is typically it's the fear, the ego of what if, right? It's the what if they don't like me? What if I make a mistake? What if I'm wrong? What if, right? And this could be at a subconscious level. I'm not saying it's always a conscious level, but what if, I reach out to someone and they're not in, I can't hire them right now. I'm like, boy, does that make me look bad? Or as a leader, I believe like I said earlier, no one wants to follow a wishy-washy leader. You need to be decisive. But the problem is, to be decisive, you have to risk being wrong. And if you risk being wrong, that means risk your ego.
Yeah,
and so one of the things that I coach and mentor is you have to look at, from an ego standpoint, what is that ego? What is the message that your ego subconsciously is talking to you and saying? Is it saying, I need to be right? Because if you need to be right and your ego is saying, I got to be right, you're not going to risk being wrong. So you may not make a decision. If your ego is saying, I have to have integrity, you may not be decisive and you may not be fearless, because something you say or do may lead to not having integrity. For example, you don't like the restaurant I recommended. If you don't like it and you challenge me and say, boy, Dave, that was a bad recommendation, that's hitting my ego and my belief that I have integrity, because now you're telling me I don't have integrity. So what I do to avoid this ego is I just don't make a decision, or I avoid being decisive, or I have an out, like, oh, it's a good restaurant, but you may or may not like it. That's my out, so that if you don't like it, I go, well, I said you may not like it. That means I'm always right. That means my integrity is intact, but I'm not decisive. So it could be that you have a belief that you're always right. You have a belief that you have integrity. You may have a belief that you're reliable, right? You have a belief that you're reliable. Well, if I'm reliable, I would not make a bad decision.
Right.
So here's the problem. To avoid a bad decision, I just don't make a decision, because then I'm still reliable. I still have integrity. I'm still smart. I'm still right. I'm still compassionate. So what I found when I coach people and I work with them on this is, like I said, I just had a conversation with a woman before this call. Major breakthrough. This is exactly what the breakthrough was. I coached her on this, and it's taken weeks to change mindset. And I talk about the strategies and techniques to do that.
Right.
But it's not an overnight thing, because we've been dealing with this ego and belief system for our entire life. So to change overnight is not the easiest. Just like changing your golf swing, it doesn't happen overnight. No. So that's why I call it performance coach, right? It's changing performance, and it's getting to root cause. And like I said, those three core elements tend to be the root cause that holds people back, even if they're well-trained. You're a well-trained leader. If you're wishy-washy, people won't follow you. And you're wishy-washy because you're not fearless. You're not decisive. So
you walk them through that strategy. Okay.
Yeah. So that's an example.
I'll give you, we're getting close to time here, so I want to just ask you one last question, though, because we are dealing with leaders in a nonprofit organization. What is the biggest challenge a leader has in driving this performance? And we've been avoiding this word sales, but we're actually talking about driving the performance of sales, driving the performance of vision. What's some of the biggest challenges they have?
Well, I would say, if it's getting their employees or their folks to do it, it's really taking the time to understand what people's challenges and their roadblocks are. And what I find from my coaching clients that I coach and mentor is, they come to me because they don't feel they can go to their boss or their leadership team. And they can't go to them and say, I've got an issue, I've got a hang up, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm clueless. And so what I realize, because I keep hearing that from everyone, in fact, many of my coaching clients will invest out of their own pocket thousands of dollars to get coaching, and they won't even tell their boss they're doing it. And in fact, they've told me, they're like, I don't want my boss to know. And I'm like, why not? And it's because they feel like it's admitting that they don't know. And so what is the biggest thing that holds leaders back is having the open dialogue and not treating your people like they're idiots when they don't know how to do something, but helping them and coaching them and investing in them. My favorite example of this that I think a lot of people can relate to is in business. For example, with you, Glenn, I don't know what your head trash is. I don't know. It's not visible, and you can kind of hide it. And, maybe your performance isn't up to par. it could be twice what it is, but there's something holding you back, but you're not going to admit it, or it's a blind spot to you. And you're getting by and you're telling me you're getting the work done, and you're just saying, but it takes longer than it takes 2 weeks. And I'm like, I don't know any better, maybe. And I go, oh, okay. What I don't realize is if I really had the right employee or well-trained, well-coached, it wouldn't be 2 weeks. It would be 2 days.
Right.
But the problem is having the employee having the comfort level to go to the management. So my analogy on this is football. When a quarterback is struggling, the coach knows it.
Right.
They see that they're passing, their timing. They see that it's off. And because they get the immediate feedback, what do? They bring in the quarterback coach and they get it nipped in the bud and they fix it. They don't fire them. They go, hey, I notice your throwing's off. I notice you're struggling right now. And you go, yeah, I've got something wrong. And it's in my shoulder. Maybe it's physical therapy or there's something wrong.
Yeah.
You know what? Let's spend some time with our performance coach and they're going to work with you. And see, think of the difference. They don't threaten them, not up front.
Not right away, yeah.
Not right away. But what they do is, there's running back coaches, there's receiving coaches, there's they have coaches that they watch performance, they get immediate feedback because they can see if it's working. They get a coach and the coach helps them to succeed. In the corporate world, nonprofit, doesn't matter. We don't get that. We don't get the vision immediately, right? We see performance, but a lot of times the performance is hidden and we don't really see it the way we see with coaching, with football, quarterback throwing a ball. And so what we do is the employee hides it even more. They hide the fact that they're struggling. They don't admit to management, I have a problem. I'm not organized. I drop the ball. I'm bad at making decisions. I've got reluctance. I'm struggling. I don't know. I'm not creative. I don't know how to take action. I don't know what the best next step would be. And instead of admitting it, because no one can see it, we hide it. And then until it gets so bad that they're put on performance plan, fired or whatever.
Right.
So the best thing leaders can do is make sure the employees know there truly is an open door dialogue. And I want you to come to me with your struggles because I'm not going to berate you and I'm not going to put you down and I'm not going to threaten you. I need to know you're struggling, throwing the ball or scrambling. I need to know what your challenge is. And you need to know that I'm there to be your coach and mentor and help you. So this is what I find is missing in the organizations that I also work with is they don't do it because they say, I don't have time.
Well,
but that gets you the biggest payback because if I invest the time and effort to coach and mentor you, and I have this open door that allows you to feel free coming to me, go, hey, you know what? I got a problem right now. I'm not decisive. I'm not creative. I'm not this. I'm not this. And I go, and they are comfortable coming to me because they know I'm going to support, not make them feel stupid.
Yeah.
Then they're going to come to me as their coach and mentor, or I'm going to get them a coach and mentor. And I'm going to say, great, let's fix it. What do we need to do to fix it? What do we need to do to support you? Now imagine, Glenn, I come to you and I say, how can I support you? How can I help you win? How can I help you perform? How can I help you achieve your goals? How can I make you feel better about yourself, feel better about work, feel better about your personal mission? Now 11 hours of the day dedicated to my business, our business. You're excited because you're like, why would I go anywhere else? Why would I want to go work for some manager who doesn't give a crap about me? I want to work for you because you invest in me. And now you have committed, dedicated employees, and they'll actually start performing. So that's the biggest obstacles I see in leadership is having that true openness and desire to help and mentor and coach their employees when they're struggling, not fire them.
Okay. We're going to have to leave it at that. We needed a whole nother conversation, but we have to leave it at that just for the time basis. But that's a proper little spot right there. Are you willing to coach your team, find their weaknesses and coach their team and do what's necessary? Hey, Dave, I thank you very much for taking the time. I know you're a busy guy. Like I said, I've just let everybody know I've known you for a while, but tell me real quick, How can people get a hold of you and your book?
So 2 ways to reach me. One is if you just want to do email, it's I'll give you my direct, David at davidsuson.com. That's David, DAVIDSUSON.com. It's that direct email. You can find me on LinkedIn there. If you want a copy of my book, it's on Amazon. But if you reach out to me, you can get it through me, and I'll get you an autographed copy of that. Cool. If you want to learn more about my selling system, you can go to 180degreeselling.com. That's the number 1, the number 8, the number 0, degreeselling.com. Learn more about the system there for you, yourself, your team. And I speak and travel normally to about 200 days a year. So if you'd like me to be a speaker, trainer, whether I do virtual or on-site, reach out to me, and I can be happy to talk with you or your team about any of the topics or points that we discussed, and we can drill down even deeper. So,
okay. And I'm gonna just add this on. Normally I don't, because I don't know people as well as I know you. This is an investment in coaching that is well worth it. Personal knowledge. All right, David, we will talk later on.
Glenn, thank you so much for having me.
You're more than welcome to have a great afternoon.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you for watching this presentation from Touchstone Publishers. Please subscribe and ring the bell to be notified when new episodes are published.